We'll test it. Test.
Okay.
No feedback.
Yeah.
Okay.
What?
So this is over the past 3 years, we've had McElhaney in doing road counts over the various long weekends. This is pre-COVID in 2019 going up to 2021. The blue, the quick synopsis on there shows some interesting data. Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. Active transportation grant.
Yeah.
Thank morning, so. Yeah.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Your weather this morning.
All right, just pull up the agenda.
You hit her head by anything?
No, everything else, but not that. Yeah.
Sorry.
I'll just share it. This is it.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is the active transportation grant that we applied for earlier in the year. We were successful in achieving that. This was for replacement of lighting, the street lights on Bridge and Vermilion. So we received 215,000 grant. Was a 75% funding. Our portion was 65,000. So for a total project is total project is 280,000. And we are currently looking at some options right now for street lights and getting some prices and designs that we'll bring back to council. But we were successful.
Questions?
Oh, okay. You said just verbally 75%, but in your report it says 80%.
Yeah, it was actually I think it was 80% dollars. We got put in 260. We put in 65, which we had in budget. We had 55 in budget. It came to we had to put in another 10. That's where the 65 came from. Sorry.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, it was. We were matching it that we had money set aside in reserves for that.
Thank you.
Did you already have an estimate or a projection done on that? Like to get that cost?
Lights, yeah, we did an estimate on what lights would be. Jim Daly was able to provide me with some information that we had before I adjusted for inflation. Yeah,
And,
we did. Yeah,
so
they're 10% of the successful result is grant match.
then
65. It's worked into that. Yeah.
so it's within that.
Yes.
Just for the motion to.
I'll second that.
Any comments? Question for this here. We've had seemingly, from my perspective, really good luck with our grant writers that we use. Would nonprofit organizations within the community, would they be able to have access to that? Those people, as long as you just pay or.
Yeah, they would engage directly with the nonprofit. So
Right.
the nonprofit could reach out to this grant match and do their own. The good thing about grant match is they put a lot of effort into searching for grants on your behalf. You tell them what your strategic planning looks like, what the priorities are, and then they search for these grants.
I just think it's a good information to get out there to nonprofit people that take advantage of that.
It's really effective for smaller communities that don't have the staff to be researching and writing, and also for smaller nonprofit societies.
Thank you. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Next one is 6.2.
Okay. This is the report. The blue report that you see on there with the town sign on it, that's just kind of like a Coles Notes version of their summary. So we had the traffic study done from 2019 to 2021. We hit the long weekends through the summer and the fall to try and get some indication on the amount of traffic that we had coming through town. So as you can see on a long weekend, we've got about 24,000 people coming through a day. The majority of them, 65% or so, are stopping for an hour and a half or less. And the largest markets are the Lower Mainland. If you go to page 2 of that, their recommendation was to target the people that are here for less than an hour. But I think the real number, if you're dig into the statistics, is the people that are here for 3 hours or more. That's really the market that is significant, because we've got 35% of people that are here 3 hours or more. We've got 22% that are longer than 3 hours. And when you take that number over 22,000 people, it means we've got about 6,500, 7,000 people that are spending more than 3 hours in town on any long weekend in the summer. So it's more than doubling our population of people that are staying here longer. And that's kind of what, based on the geographical targeting there through TELUS, we're able to tell where the people are coming from. Large portions coming from the Lower Mainland. Our marketing efforts have been directed there. The second largest portion is coming from the Okanagan. Also, we're very directed there in marketing to those two regions. And we're seeing the residual effects of that. When council was first appointed, you may remember I said if we could increase our traffic numbers in the town by 2%, we would see a significant increase. Our businesses would benefit from that. There's a significant dollar amount. We've actually had a 16% increase through our visitor center traffic. So it's far above and beyond of what I had expected. Last year, every month was a new record for people coming through, starting in January. And that's very encouraging. And we're seeing the signs and definitely the benefits of being open 7 days a week, staying open later, and offering, more of a destination experience. We're more than just a place now to pick up a brochure about somewhere else. We're actively marketing the town, and I think that's all in all that the marketing efforts are validated based on this study. Yet also to keep in mind that this averages out 2 of those years are COVID years in there, and that definitely affects our numbers. And we'll see. I'm interested to do, post-COVID year and see how traffic goes now. We're finally getting out of that. So I would like to do some more traffic studies this year and see what kind of numbers we're generating. But this is all valuable data that we can give to businesses that are looking to come here. That's often a common question: is what's your traffic counts? That's something the town has never had until now. So we're able to provide that information, and that will assist, economic development, that will assist tourism, that will assist our existing businesses across the board. One of the other things in the larger presentation, if you turn to page 4, you'll see the Highway East, the peak traffic times. If you look, it starts picking up at 8 a.m. and doesn't really die down until 8 p.m. So again, that's encouraging in the sense that we've stayed open till 6 o'clock at the visitor center. We're seeing people coming between that 5 and 6 hour. There's still quite a few people coming into town. It might be a good practice, for our businesses to look at their hours in the summer and possibly consider extending those hours, because I think there's opportunities that are being missed there by some of our businesses by closing early.
So Gary, the radar counts, those are the ones that McElhaney put out on the road itself?
Yes.
So it's interesting that their data shows that there's kind of like a peak traffic, and like it doesn't start dying off until about 4:30ish.
Yeah.
But then there's both graphs between 4 and 5 just drop right off. So what I'd like to know is that because most of our businesses close between 4 and 5 and people come to town, there's nothing to do, so they're leaving? Or is there actually a traffic flow? Because the TELUS data says it starts dropping off just after lunch, right?
Yeah.
But the actual traffic that's going through there's a bubble there until about 4, and then it slows right down. drastic drop between 5 and around 5 o'clock there, so.
I think
Some of that traffic will be local, and that's why you'll probably see that drop is people going home from work. So you'll see a bit of a drop there. But I think you're absolutely right, and some of that traffic that's coming from out of town is realizing that, you know, if things are not open, they're gonna go by, and that does get out. You know, there's a precedent set there.
Cause it does kind of level off at supper time there again.
Yes,
right? And then it
yeah.
goes off
Yeah.
after supper. so.
Yeah. Just one more thing I wanted to. Again, if you go to page 9, you'll see those hours. They've identified those in the report as well, to 8 AM to 8 PM. And their recommendation, you know, they're supporting our tourism efforts there, and encouraging, you know, that's something we continue to work on. And then if you go to page 11 of the report, you'll see where the people are coming from. It's outlined there. So 46% is coming from the lower mainland, and then that 27% coming from the Okanagan. So it really does show the benefits we have of our location geographically, as being the first stop before you head over the mountain, or the last stop before you go over, the first stop when you come over. And that can be seen with those traffic numbers. Again, that validates a lot of that Highway 3 traffic that we're seeing.
Gary, on page 5 there, it breaks down the days of the week during, from Monday to October there. Are we able to pull out just say the Sunday, Mondays and see what's happening on those days?
Yeah, we should be able to.
It'd be interesting to see what kind of opportunities we're missing on Sunday and Mondays.
Yeah. Yeah, Monday is an extremely busy day. It's busy at our visitor center, especially on a long weekend. We've got a lot of people that are coming back through. You know, and that's definitely an opportunity day that's being missed here. There's no doubt in my mind that that's a significant loss of revenue by not being open Mondays.
So, Councilor McLean, when I was in restaurant industry, Monday is when most of the seniors traveled. Monday and Wednesday is kind of like their days to travel. Is it still, do you still see that on?
I really don't agree in terms of Monday. The other one would be fine. Busy as
Thursdays?
I'm thinking a lot of people get 4 days off or something.
Yeah, we see that at the,
And when I say Thursday, I'm talking about from 5 o'clock on into the evening.
we see those numbers increase too at the RV park. Thursdays is when it really starts to book up. We'll get a lot of traffic that comes in on Thursday, especially on a long weekend. So absolutely. I think that is my report.
That's it, okay. Does anybody have any questions? Comments? I think it's pretty straightforward. It's good data. I'd love if we could spend a little bit more time on it and maybe shared that kind of stuff with the downtown chamber and everybody, just to show them where opportunities might lie. You know, might be some adjusting of some hours or something to accommodate for some of these more peak days. I know if we had that one, we could have planned a little bit better. I mean, you start to learn patterns, but you know, they've kind of changed over the years. So, thank you. Again, that's a motion to receive for information. Councilor McLean, Councilor Elliott, last chance for questions or comments.
It would be interesting to get a boiled down version of this, you know, through the paper or whatever it is, or maybe on Facebook page or something, just like, there's a lot of data in there, but there's portions of it that are, if you boil that down, you're not gonna blow people away with a whole bunch of figures. You're just gonna say, did you know that these hours are busy hours, and that's it. Exactly.
We'll publish this whole report on economic development and put it in pages of our website. So all this information will be online. And we can summarize it with, like the edited version that is quite, that's a pretty 2-page document that kind of shows everything.
Yeah, and I think the summary part will probably get people going, not all of them, but some will want to dig into this a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 6.3, 2022 transfers to reserve funds. James.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as per requirements of the community charter, I present a report that transfers reserves into their proper accounts for the 2022 fiscal year. I will give a really sort of top overview of the different reserves and how they all transfer forward for this fiscal year, and I'll field any questions after we're done. So the amount of reserves that we are pulling is $1.322 million, and adding $9.166 million to the reserve funds for 2022. The future amenity that we are pulling, $56,250, was a grant that we received last fiscal year. It was reserved in the future amenity due to lack of reserve properly constituted that we could actually use to allocate those funds. Because those funds were used in this year, that's where we pulled it from. Arena reserve was the first part of the arena improvement project. That was approved in last year's financial plan. A paving reserve, we are required under the UBCM agreement with the federal government that any funds that aren't used in the fiscal year that are allocated are reserved. So those were reserved in 2021 and used in 2022, and then we received new gas tax funding that was allocated in the current year. Water and sewer project reserve. So we have a $7 million loan allocation that we received. That is the first part of the capital works that have been completed. A large portion of that is going to the project of the booster station rebuild at Warner Street and Billiter Avenue. I think there's also funds allocated for, help me out, Jared. There was another project there that was also included. Warner Billiter was a majority.
Yeah, it's the majority.
Yeah, I think there's also some engineering work. Force main, thank you. So also the sewer force main that goes underneath the Smoking River Venture Station. So the water reserve allocations was it was for the valve exerciser that was purchased for the water department. The next allocation, we actually have 2 capital funds for fire department equipment. I'm proposing that council merges those 2 together as the 2 reserves fundamentally serve the same purpose, and there's no reason to have 2. So that second portion of that motion, that council removed the $34,000 and put it into the fire department, that would consolidate those 2 reserve funds together so that we wouldn't have 2 separate reserve funds that serve the same purpose. And that we add $9.166 million to the following reserve funds. The sewer and the water reserve, those 2 are the excess of funds from user fees subtracted off from the expenses this year. $187,000 for the sewer reserve and $168,000 for the water reserve. Land sales reserve is $860,000, which is allocated from the land sales this year. $550,000, I believe was from BC Green, and $300,000 was from the federal government. And interest was accrued to push that to $860,000. $1,580.62 in the Parkland Reserve. There were no changes to Parkland Reserve, so that's strictly interest. The Future Amenity Reserve, that was allocated. We have a policy in place where those funds are received from the taxation currently valued at the Copper Mountain Mine, plus the amount of dividend that's received within the Million Forks Community Forest Corporation. That policy was amended last year to allocate up to $400,000 to the fire hall equipment first, and then the residual that gets applied to the future management. That's how it's been applied. And that is the amount that has been allocated is $359,000. $418,000 for fire department equipment. 34,000 is from that duplicate capital account. 400,000 is from the combination of mine taxation and the Vermilion Forks dividend and interest, and 27,000 was drawn from it for replacement of the fire department exhaust system. So that capital project was a third funded from the regional district. A third funder and up to $27,000 pulled from the reserve and the remainder current taxation. PXA ground reserve or arena reserve, industrial park reserve, and landfill closure reserve are all interest on the current amounts that are put into those accounts, and they are accrued. A paving reserve, again, any amount of 2022 gas tax that was not used in the current fiscal year has to be put into reserve under the terms of the UBCM agreement with the federal government. So that reserve is put into reserve for 2023 to be used for future capital items that are eligible. Capital Works Reserve was not used. That's strictly interest into that account. The Infrastructure Reserve is interest accrued in that, plus the amount that we collect off the infrastructure levies through the water and sewer bills. And the Water and Sewer Project Reserve, we drew $7 million from the Municipal Finance Authority. That's reserved for allocation to future projects. There was a small amount of interest that was accrued on that through the year, and that's also allocated reserve. So those are the proposed reserves by staff. I would ask council to approve that resolution. It's part of the audit process that was happening.
Okay, so questions on this, the fire department capital reserve, which is RDOS, it says here. Is that the RDOS? I'm assuming that reserve was put in place because that is the excess from the RDOS to stay in as capital, not equipment. So our reserve is an equipment reserve, that one is a capital reserve. They're different uses of it.
It's capital by definition. We have spent more than that amount in the past 5 years on equipment, so that would be allocated from previous years.
So do we have somewhere a motion as to why this, or something, some documents saying why we have the fire department capital RDOS?
I found no documentation on that.
There has to be a motion somewhere. I'm just hesitant to remove a reserve fund that is there with the RDOS's name attached to it without knowing why it specifically exists.
The capital budget would be used under the same allocation. So fire department equipment and fire hall equipment will all go toward fire equipment. So fundamentally, they serve the same purpose.
Councilor Gould, do you have questions?
I do. So, in continuing what Mark was speaking on the RDOS reserve. So last year we approved in the budget to do the booth. Did we receive funding from the regional district last year for the roof, or did we receive it after we expense it?
We have put in for that amount to be put in for the exhaust system. It has not been paid. The roof, we will not bill until the project is complete.
Okay, So then same as the exhaust, that was approved previous year as well, but then it actually got completed in 2022.
Yeah.
So is that kind of the intent of that fund then? Is that as we get the money, even as a project? Because of whatever reason didn't happen that year, but to the next year, that's not why that reserve fund is there?
It would be allocated based on the completion of a project for the fire hall.
So it doesn't have to stay as like, earmarked as the regional district portion.
I don't have sufficient information to answer that question.
So that is the,
Because I kind of, that's how I'm taking that to be,
so we do have a fire, we have an agreement, a bylaw on our fire protection. I forget the bylaw number, but it's our agreement with the regional district. We should probably look at that before we go remove. Did you check that bylaw?
We have a shared services agreement. We don't have a fund.
Yeah, it goes back to the 80s, so we might want to see if it's in that bylaw, that it's there under that bylaw before we remove it. I'm not trying to split hairs here with you, but we have a specific reserve that says RDOS on it, and there may be restrictions on what that money is to be used for. Can you remember anything as to why that might be there?
As far as I was concerned, it just came under the agreement that
Yeah,
we worked together in terms of,
so,
and I would have imagined that, wouldn't you imagine that there would be some sort of contingency set aside
for their portion of things.
for future problems that may arise?
That's what I'd imagine, but without the documentation as to why it's there, I don't want to get ourselves in any trouble, because if there's a reserve and there's a motion to have that reserve, then we should find out why the reason behind that was.
The impetus behind that recommendation is just for clarity of,
Who's paying for what?
clarity of allocation of reserves. When council wants to know how much money they have for fire hall equipment, that's what I view a reserve fund for. Not necessarily, you know, this is for fire hall equipment, but that's for fire hall equipment. There's different circumstances. It's kind of nonsensical. We can always make a note that the 34,000 with approval of the RDOS or something. It's just for simple ease of information.
Councilor Gould, do you have a hand up?
yeah, just to clarify then, has that $34,000 been there for a while? Or
It
is
has
it-
been there since I started.
So could it possibly have been meant or intended to go to a project and it didn't get drawn? In like,
Yeah.
past,
Very, very well.
that's already been paid for by the joint fund.
It may have.
Okay. So that's okay. Can I ask you a not that related question? Sure. So in the listing that you did with the background information on what each transfer is for, there's a draw under the fire hall equipment for the fire hall replacement for 27,000.
Yeah.
But it's not on the,
You know, that should read fire hall exhaust system. That's I apologize. Just a misclarification.
so, but then that 27,000 isn't on that drawdown portion. Is it just a net amount then on the
That
bottom?
would be a net amount on the.
So just housekeeping to
Yes.
change that. Yeah, so just a question on. Do we need to,
Well, there's no urgency to that section of your motion. We can always withdraw that and leave it there for now, and we can always do it at a later date. There's no time restriction on transferring reserves. We can do that at a later time.
I do have to have it for the completion of the audit, so I'll need it by May 12th, but yeah, we can.
But it's already in reserves. It's already accounted for. You just want to move it to another reserve.
Yes.
So it's in reserve. Yeah. I would just like to find out why it exists. If there's a reason for it existing, like there was a project for it and like it's specifically for towards a fire truck or towards the roof or towards building maintenance or something, then I want to make sure that we know very clearly that that's why that money was there. Obviously, nobody here has memory of it, so because none of us have memory of it, we need to find out further as to why it's there. It could predate all of our time for all I know, and maybe it's just been sitting there for 40 years. You never know. Our bylaw goes back to the 80s, so it could have been back to then, right? Like we don't know. So I would rather be safe than sorry. So I would,
Because the capital purpose. Sides. Recommendation. That would subdivide that. 118. 34,698.20 interest and.
So make a motion to remove that and that.
no, you don't have. Without that, there's no motion on the table at this time. So you can just say, just remove the and that council from the recommendation and move it as that. No, you said make a motion to both of them, but you don't have to amend it. Yeah, but we don't have to have a motion to do that because there's no motion on the table at this time. Yeah.
James, this 34,698 that's in that and that, is it included in the next and that total
Yeah.
of the 9 million?
Yes, but it would just simply reallocate. That 9 million is going into reserves whether it stays or not.
Okay, so it would just come out of the fire department equipment.
That's
reserve.
right. So that would subdivide that into
Okay.
2 lines.
Perfect.
Which, because they both fundamentally serve the same purpose, we're still legislatively okay for that allocation to just split that line into 2.
Thank you.
Are you gonna make the motion?
Sure. Make a motion without that part in it.
Okay, Councilor Gould is making the motion, seconder. Councilor Elliott, any, yep,
Can I just have an update on the forest court? So,
we haven't
we
had a meeting. Is there money coming in?
Yeah, so preliminarily, and these are interim numbers, so they haven't been audited yet, they're in the process. But the forest court made approximately $900,000 last year, so the policy of the corporation is to retain 100,000, which leaves 800,000 for dividends, and it's divided 3 ways. So roughly $260,000 to $270,000 would be my best guess for dividend payables this year.
what I was looking more for was the future.
That's it. We cut our 5-year allowable cut. I think we finished it all normal.
I realize that. So where are we in that 5-year?
Well, we were at the beginning of it.
Right, so there's 4 more years of no income kind of thing.
Mhm.
And
Well, 2 and 3-ish,
yeah.
because we logged it over the winter.
Get back into it again once the years is up.
Once we sit down with our manager, we'll find out. We have to, probably not right now, because we do have that 5-year rotation that we have to work off of. And we've cut everything that's allocated for that 5 years, or we were planning on cutting all that. We anticipate an increase in stumpage, which is why we cut everything now, because if we do get stuck with the increase in stumpage, there probably won't be much, if any, profits from the company.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so we have a motion with a mover and seconder. Last chance to ask questions on the motion. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 6.4 is the Canada Community Revitalization Fund. Gary, is this yours? Yep.
So this is just an update. This was the large grant we were awarded last year for $750,000. This is the one where we have to spend the money first and then we get reimbursed by the federal government as the funds get allocated. We are on a timeline for the end of March, so I'm asking for council this first allocation of the $79,130.56 towards sidewalk improvements. I've spoke with the grant issuers and told them, you know, there's been some delays and that's been common across the board. Everybody's had it with weather or they're seeing, you know, an uptick in costs of projects because of inflation and things like that. And they've given us some room to work within that. And I told them what we were doing and they were in approval. So this will go to fixing up the plaza area, the sidewalk around the plaza area. So that broken concrete all there'll be a retaining wall put in. You'll see the quotes are provided. Recommending we go with the Rona quote. We did get a quote from locally sourced as well that came later that isn't in your report. But it was 5,000 more than the Rona quotes. So some of this work will be done by town staff as well, as outlined in the breakdown that Jim provided me. And yeah, this is basically the first one of these. So there's 4 others. The amenities building will be coming, and then there's some other projects that we've got going with the test pieces for sidewalk and a lot of involved around sidewalk improvement with that grant as per what we had requested for when it was written.
Questions? Councillor Gould?
So when you're the Bridge Street Park is where this is gonna happen at, when you're gonna do those improvements, you're gonna somehow block it off from traffic.
The improvements are actually going to be on the inside of that park, on the inside wall. The initial ones, this Allen block is going on the inside wall,
Oh,
so that it won't affect traffic in any way.
so for the ramp, no, I mean for parking and stuff like that, you're gonna.
Yeah, we're gonna have to, that whole thing is gonna have to be bollarded off for the plaza.
So is that gonna, how are you gonna do that? Are you gonna do, no posts down there or?
Yeah, we've got those that were ordered with our furniture, so when that plaza is finished, there'll be bollards put up right across, so it'll be a no drive zone.
Okay, so, but that's not included in this first part.
No, that was included prior when last year with the furniture order, the bollards were in that.
So it just needs to be completed.
Yeah, the furniture was delivered in November, so we couldn't, there was no sense in putting it out in November for spring.
Okay, no, I just wanted to make sure that you're gonna go to the trouble of fixing everything that's gonna be.
Yeah, and this will seal in the cracks there. It'll also get some paint on them, so that it will make that area look nice without having to do a full repave or anything like that. I wanted to avoid the repave because of the smell and the heat. So this was a good economical solution.
Anybody else have any questions? Somebody want to make a motion? Okay, Councillor Willis is making the recommended motion. Councillor McLean is seconding. Any last questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Council reports, we need to cancel the March 1st, tomorrow's meeting. Recommendation, because 3 of us will be away. Recommendation of the regular meeting of council scheduled for March 1st to 2023 be canceled. Thank you, Councillor Elliott, seconder. Councillor Gould. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Bylaws and resolutions, section 10, the 2023-2027 financial plan. James.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I submit the second reading of the Town of Princeton Financial Plan bylaw 1035-2022 for second reading. I'll just sort of in the process of how we got here and moving forward. How we are the budgeting process. So way back in August, we started our budgeting process by asking departmental managers on progress of individual capital projects and whether they were eligible to carry forward or whether they were moving forward at all with the necessity and the source of funds. We came up with a capital plan. We went into strategic planning in September. We brought council into the conversation. Staff and council met together and discussed any future capital projects that fit within the vision and mission of the municipality. And came up with some additional lists, which we discussed during 2 budget meetings, one on December 12th, one on December 14th. Came up with a draft budget, combining the operational and the capital plans with sources of funds, which was preliminarily approved on December 14th. Along with that, we went with first reading, which allocated a name and allowed us to move forward with the preparation of financial plans. Through the month of December and January, the same processes that happened right from August. Staff, council, propose different additions and changes to the capital plan. The budget really is a living document during these debate processes on how the budget fits together. It is much more advantageous to the process and much more advantageous to council's time to ensure that we have as complete of a picture of what our financial numbers are going to look like before the financial plan is adopted. So we have refined some grant applications. There were a couple of numbers that we were not 100% sure of that have seen more clarity in the last couple of months. Some different tendering processes, some more inquiries. We do a lot of data mining and a lot of fact finding. The departmental managers, Director Jack, Jared Thomas, our infrastructure technologist, Carrie with the planning and zoning updates, do a lot of work in the couple of months preceding the time we prepared the financial plan to ensure we get the best numbers we can. There are still some modifications to be made. What second reading does is it puts that budget that we passed on December 14th into a conceptual framework that the province can understand. So we are required to pass a bylaw for a financial plan according to the community charter. That's what this proposes to do. It is not a final number. Going to second reading, the bylaw is still fully amended. So it is a 30-page document, largely produced by me, and it really needs to be a document that is created by council and staff sharing the process. And I encourage everyone, council, staff, members of the community, everyone who wants some input into what the future of the community is going to look like, to come in and discuss the numbers and come up with great ideas that we can put into this financial plan. And I think everyone in this room does that. So I'm happy to take questions on it all the way through the year. After we get this financial plan reading passed, like I said, just to acknowledge the fact that it exists and it gives us something to work off of, to amend, to take to public consultation, to get input on whether it's going to happen. Third reading will be scheduled for the first council meeting in April after a public consultation process, at which point that's when we have it largely locked into stone. It's not amendable at that point. And then the meeting after that first council meeting, whether we do a special meeting or it's a second council meeting in April, will be the adoption. We must adopt the financial plan by May 12th. That's what it says in the legislation. So I submit the second reading of the financial plan to council. If there are any questions, I'm happy to.
Councilor McLean, did you have a question?
I would so move the second reading.
Seconder? Councilor Willis is seconding. Questions? Councilor Gould.
Well, I had a good discussion with Director Graham today about this budget reading today. So to clarify and confirm, it's not passing it today, it's reading, second reading. And in that is just acknowledging there's a document, because I have disagreements with what's within this. In that there's figures that need clarification. There was some written information in there that needed to be clarified or corrected, and that was done too. So I am in support of second and just saying that yes, this document exists, and yes, we're gonna have further discussions on it, clarification. Because there were some things that weren't discussed at that last budget meeting, and as Director Graham explained today and earlier, it's stuff that gets added on usually, like it comes back as a resolution or a recommendation from the council to add to the proposed budget. So I'm just gonna go, I finally got a document today that makes a big part of me being able to verify. And there's still some discrepancies on amounts, so we'll bring those forward.
So, to answer your question, absolutely, it's fully amendable at this point. Both, consultation is done through council. So I would encourage all members of council, to come in and discuss the financial plan and the draft budget as it stands now. If we need to make changes and modifications, that's put into a report and submitted to council, and we would absolutely verify that before we went to third reading. Also, as a member of the public, if there is any issue with draft budget or financial plan and whether it was supported or not, that's part of the public consultation process, and it's important that I know, so I can communicate that to council as a whole, so you're aware of it to make an informed decision for adoption.
And with that, so at what point then does council debate or discuss the changes and the final
No,
information that's in here?
We can, as I said, during the public consultation process or at any time in the process.
right now is
Um, this, yeah, please come in and discuss that with the financial officer of the municipality, which is me.
Which I am happy to do at any time, but I mean, as a council, have those debates and discussions.
That's now, that's third reading, that's anytime. Yeah, I think, committee of the whole would probably be a good place to discuss those various, modifications. We can't pass any amendments during a committee of the whole, but, at a committee of the whole, if we wanted to have budget discussions, those are absolutely allowed there too.
The
If
unfortunate
we want to have
thing
it,
is,
if we want to have it in a more open format.
I'd support the committee of the whole, because I think that's a little bit more informal, we can have those discussions, or clarify, because, you know, like, there's a lot of information that we get during a budget meeting. But the unfortunate thing is the committee of the wholes are during the day, and I, at this time, can't attend those.
I would be happy to field any questions you have in the office and communicate anything into the budget that, on your behalf, if you'd like.
Thank you. So I'm supporting acknowledging it's a document.
call the question, all in favor? Anybody opposed? Carried. We'll move to 13, motion to close, recommendation the meeting be closed to the public for the purpose of considering the following: 90.1C, labor relations or other employee relations, and 90.1E, the acquisition, disposition, and expropriation of land or improvements that the council considers that the disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. Thank you, Council Gould. Thank you, Willis. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And if anybody's watching, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.